Hello, I'm Sally Beamish, a composer and also a viola player, and I'm here at the Wigmore Hall to tell you a little bit about my fourth string quartet, 9 Fragments, which is the set piece for the Wigmore International String Quartet competition here at the Wigmore Hall. So it's very exciting for me to hear the piece several times and to get to know it a little better in different interpretations. That's always a real treat for a composer to learn something about their own music. The piece was originally written for the Elias Quartet, and it's actually the second quartet I wrote for them because my third quartet, Reed Stanzas, was also written for them. And it was so nice that they came back and asked for another quartet. And this time they had a definite brief, which was that they wanted a piece that would connect in some way to Schumann's first quartet in A minor. And the first thing I did, in fact, was to get together with some other players and play through the Schumann, just so that I really got to know it from the inside. But there are other elements in the Schumann apart from, in Schumann's story, really. Apart from this quartet, obviously, his life was in a way quite tragic, and I've always identified with his wife, Clara. She was the only female composer that I'd ever heard of when I was a little girl, so she was a kind of role model. But also, when I began to write this piece, I had a daughter who was 23 years old at the time, and Clara was 23 years old when she married Schumann. And it's somehow very moving to think about what their marriage would be like and the challenges that they would have with Schumann's mental illness, with the fact that Clara had to support the family. She had to continue through this really, really difficult time. They had tremendous difficulties in being allowed to marry in the first place. And then their life must have been far from easy, and it's quite moving to think of this young girl dealing with all of that, and then with 8 children, and so I think somehow that has come into the piece, and I think I have kind of represented Clara with the viola, which is my own instrument. What I took as a starting point was the Schumann quartet, and the themes that jumped out at me as being important and interesting. And I started at the end of the quartet when there's this really beautiful chorale, which just comes from nowhere. And I decided that my quartet would open with something that reflected that. And in fact, all these 9 fragments take a tiny piece of the Schumann and sort of hold like a broken mirror to that, so that you get some kind of an idea of Schumann's idea, but then it's through my own lens. And this chorale is heard right at the beginning of the quartet, and of my quartet, and then I work my way back through the Schumann, picking themes as I go. And there are, in fact, 8 themes that I pick from the different movements. And they are all reflected in 9 fragments, and each fragment has a very definite character. And the title of each movement is that character. And this is very much to do with Schumann's personality, that he would go very quickly from one mood to another, from elation to depression to fear, and I think this is quite evident in his writing sometimes, that you get something just coming from nowhere, or you get a theme that he barely touches on before he moves on to another theme without developing the first one. And so I thought the structure of creating a piece that was made up of fragments would somehow be a response to the way that Schumann wrote. And the piece ends with a mirror image of that chorale, quite literally played backwards. I think one of the most important things for any quartet approaching 9 fragments is that they capture these different moods, that they really, really make a huge difference between the character of each of these tiny movements, which are very, very simple. They each only have one idea. And the main aspect of that movement of each fragment is the character.